Donald Trump, one of the most divisive people of our time. A self-made man, successful businessman and entrepreneur. Actor.
Down the hall and to the left. Before we go too far, I've got something to tell you.
Criminal.
As it turns out, virtually everybody that has looked at this case say there is no crime and that it should never have been brought.
And the future president again.
And we will make America great again.
Indulge us as we take you back to a pivotal moment in Donald J. Trump's life that may have been the spark he needed to shape the man we know and love today.
Let's not act like children.
Strap yourself in, because this is a cracking northern mystery. Our story takes us over 3,000 miles away from New York to the historic city of York in the 1960s, where a young man arrives to visit a family friend and explore the charming, winding streets of the Shambles. One moonlit evening, Donald found himself in the shadow of York Minster, the towering Gothic cathedral that loomed over the city like a sentinel of time. The streets were eerily quiet, save for the occasional sound of a distant church bell. It was then that he noticed a figure standing by the Shambles, the narrow medieval street that looked like something out of a storybook. The figure wore a cloak and a wide-brimmed hat, his face obscured by a mask, one that Donald would later learn was the infamous visage of Guy Fawkes. Intrigued and undeterred, Donald approached, his curiosity piqued.
Who are you supposed to be?
He asked, his brash New York accent cutting through the night. The figure turned, revealing piercing eyes behind the mask. "I am a ghost," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "You may know me as Guy Fawkes." Donald chuckled, thinking it a tourist gimmick.
Yeah, sure, and I'm George Washington.
The figure stepped closer, his presence suddenly chilling. "Laugh, if you will, young man. But I sense in you a kindred spirit, someone who seeks to leave a mark on history, no matter the cost." Donald raised an eyebrow, his interest now genuinely piqued.
All right, let's say I believe you. What does a ghost like you want with me?
Fawkes gestured toward a nearby bench, and the two sat under the dim glow of a street lamp. The ghost began to speak of his failed plot to blow up Parliament in 1605, a plan to strike a blow against tyranny that had instead cemented his place in history as a cautionary tale. "My mistake," Fawkes said, his voice tinged with regret, "was in aiming too high without securing the foundation first. I tried to change the world, but I underestimated my enemies." Donald leaned back, a smirk playing on his lips.
Well, I'll tell you this, Guy. You don't make history by playing it safe. You gotta go big, make him talk about you, good or bad, doesn't matter, as long as they're talking.
Fawkes studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps you are right, but beware, young man. To go big, as you say, is to risk losing yourself." Donald shrugged.
Losing myself? Nah. I'll be the greatest, the most talked about, even if it's for being terrible. People will remember me, that's the point. I will be the greatest human being the world has ever seen.
As the ghost faded into the mist, Donald felt a strange exhilaration. The encounter had stirred something deep within him, a desire not just to succeed, but to dominate, to become a figure so polarizing that history books would never stop mentioning his name. That night, as he lay in his hotel bed, the vision crystallized. He would take risks, push boundaries, and play by his own rules. If people hated him, so be it. Hatred, after all, was just another form of attention. Years later, as he ascended to the presidency and unleashed a whirlwind of controversy,
the greatest political comeback in American history. We're going to lead the greatest economic comeback in American history under Donald Trump's leadership.
Donald often thought back to that strange weekend in York. He'd never admit it to anyone, of course, but in the quiet moments, he sometimes wondered if Guy had been real or just a figment of his overactive imagination. Regardless, the lesson stuck. In the game of history, what mattered most was not being loved or even respected. It was being remembered.
Young man,
on that fateful night in York, had set out to ensure his place in the annals of time, for better or for worse. Thanks for watching Northern Mysteries. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales from the edges of reality. And remember, history is stranger than it seems.